Let me turn that mic on. Good morning, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Happy Thursday. We've got several things we've got to tackle. A couple of them out of the city of Chicago, especially with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson delivering his budget address asking for $300 million in property tax increases. And Governor J.B. Pritzker acknowledging property taxes are already too high. Plus, we got to talk about a controversial appointment that Johnson made to the Chicago School Board that's getting a lot of attention. And we'll also get to the latest in garbage politics with the governor reacting to that as well. And excuse me, sinuses or something's kicking up here at the home studio. But we also got to hear a little bit of the school report card that came out yesterday from the Illinois State Board of Education. And I do want some of you in the chat room live with us this morning. Shout out your school board, your school district, and we'll do some kind of interaction to go through the school report card, show you some of the things at least I think are kind of interesting when it comes to individual school districts. So we'll tackle that as well. But obviously another big story out of Chicago deals with a individual shot by what appears to be a hate crime of some kind. Let's go to Bill Malugin. He's, of course, a reporter for Fox News, and he says, per 4 law enforcement sources to me and colleague Griff Jenkins, the suspect charged with shooting a Jewish man as he walked to a Chicago synagogue on Saturday is an illegal alien who was caught and released in Border Patrol's San Diego, California sector in March of 2023. Police say the 22-year-old walked up to the Orthodox Jew who was wearing traditional Jewish clothing and shot him multiple times without saying a word. He then got into a shootout with responding officers and was shot himself. He's now charged with 14 felonies. Fox is told that the sanctuary policies in Cook County prohibit local law enforcement from cooperating with ICE on a detainer request. Local Jewish leaders believe this is a targeted hate crime, but no hate crime charges have been filed as of now. The victim survived the attack. More details as they come. So clearly that's going to be a pretty big story, especially here with less than a week before the election. We heard, yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker sharing his thoughts about sanctuary state policies and how, violent criminal illegal aliens need to be apprehended and deported, but he says the law's in place to protect others who are here undocumented. So I wanted to get that out for you. Obviously, there's a lot to say about that story out of Chicago, but we've got to tackle a few other things, including garbage politics, continuing with a joke, a reaction, and even more reaction. So stay tuned. It's here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we give you what you need to know to start your day here in the land of Lincoln.
Garbage I see smoke out there is just the porter.
How do you like my garbage truck?
only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments.
And I do think that it's out of an exasperation.
Of course, President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Governor J.B. Pritzker reacting to a joke about a island being an island of garbage that was made during a Trump rally, and then President Joe Biden reacting to that, and everybody else's reaction thereafter. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. We touched on this yesterday after reaction from Governor J.B. Pritzker and even former President Donald Trump and the comments that President Biden made. But I wanted to kind of reverse back to Monday after Sunday's Madison Square Garden rally in New York, where Donald Trump had a rally. Way before he came on, Tony Hinchcliffe, a roast comedian, made a joke about, it's crazy, the environment. There's this big island of garbage out in the middle of the ocean. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Got a lot of in the crowd, but obviously he's a roast comedian, and the joke really had a leg of its own. With media calling it racist and so on. Governor J.B. Pritzker on Monday reacting to some of those headlines.
It was a shameful show of what the Republican Party has become and what Donald Trump represents. And we saw racism, sexism over and over again by speakers for a couple of hours, and of course directly by Donald Trump.
And again, you have President Joe Biden making these comments.
As I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done.
So Biden making those comments Tuesday, that was just before former President Donald Trump took the stage, and he was notified about those comments.
That's terrible. That's what it says. That's what it says. So you have, remember Hillary, she said deplorable, and then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable, that didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right? But he doesn't know, you have to please forgive him. Please forgive him, for he not knoweth what he said.
So again, Trump seeming to be the ultimate stage man. He was able to kind of take it in a different direction. But again, that was Tuesday night after Biden's Tuesday evening comments. Yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker back in front of cameras here in Illinois, up in Chicago, and he was asked about these comments, in particular about half of the country who supports Donald Trump being garbage.
Look, I don't think that it was meant in the way that some people have taken it, and I do think that it's out of an exasperation that there are so many people who, for example, spoke person after person at Madison Square Garden expressing thoughts of hate openly and seemingly proudly. And I think it's an exasperation with what's going on with some people in the country.
Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee for taking on former President Donald Trump, she was asked later in the day about the comments that Biden made. Here's the Associated Press video.
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for.
So Harris obviously, distancing herself from Biden's comments, even though Biden did come back on X and social media and say that he meant to say that it was the joke that was garbage, not Trump's supporters. And then there's a lot of conflict about the transcript that the White House put out about that quote, and people saying that it's been altered. Who knows? Obviously, that'll come out in the wash. But when Governor Pritzker was in front of cameras, he was asked about the Biden reference to, Trump supporters being garbage. But he was also asked if it's appropriate to label Trump as a fascist.
And do you feel it's appropriate for Vice President Harris to make her final argument about
appropriate.
Appropriate, but do you think this is motivated? Political?
Look, I think there are a lot of people who are motivated. I think if you look at the polling data on what's motivating people to show up at the polls, one of the top issues is the threat to democracy. So, addressing one of the top issues on people's minds is not inappropriate. I think there are other things that are also on people's minds, and people, I've often said this, as somebody who's, been a national advocate for abortion rights and someone who has fought against hate, I can say people don't show up at the polls with one issue in mind. They have a lot of things on their minds. Some may be more important than others. So I think trying to address the concerns of a lot of people in a final argument, and by the way, there's 6 days left, and so there's an opportunity, I think, to express lots of other things over the course of the next 6 days. But I think that democracy is, it'd be hard-pressed to find somebody in this room or around the state or the nation who doesn't have that on their list of concerns. And so I'm glad that she's talking about it.
So he says it's not inappropriate for the Democrats to use fascism, anti-fascism, as a argument heading into the final stretch here before the election. But former President Donald Trump, again in true showman fashion, got off his plane and then jumped into a garbage truck with Trump written on the side of it yesterday before heading to a rally.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden. And I think 250 million people in this country are going to be very happy because we're going to bring the country back. We're a nation in decline, very, very serious decline, and we're going to bring our country back.
So Trump making a show of it. Again, he told the supporters to forgive Joe Biden. Biden knows not what he does. He gets into a garbage truck, does some what people realize and characterize as trolling. And then he gets on stage wearing that vest, not his traditional, suit jacket. No, wearing a emergency responders vest that you typically see people working in a dump truck wearing. And this is what he had to say at that rally in Wisconsin where he got the endorsement of Brett Favre.
250 million Americans are not garbage. This week, Kamala has been comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. And now, speaking on a call for her campaign last night, crooked Joe Biden finally said what he and Kamala really think of our supporters. He called them garbage. No way. No way. And they actually mean it, even though without question, my supporters are far higher quality than Crooked Joe or Lion Kamala. Higher quality. My response to Joe and Kamala is very simple. You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. That's true. You can't be president if you hate the American people, which I believe they do. And Kamala Harris is not fit to be president of the United States. In no way is she fit.
Pretty fascinating times, and here we are with, 5 days before the election? Whoa. What could possibly happen between now and then? Of course, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network. Get the live show each and every weekday morning. Get the podcast uninterrupted where you get podcasts, and join us as we break down what you need to know to get your day going here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Illinois already has among the highest property taxes in the country. We're right behind New Jersey, but it's getting close. We might be the highest soon, if not already. But Chicago, if Mayor Brandon Johnson gets his way, you're going to be paying a higher property tax. Welcome in Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Chicago, of course, large economic engine for the state. A lot of people live there. It dominates Illinois' politics. There's no question about it. But the city has a whole host of financial issues. They're looking at $1 billion of debt. Their pension issues are a mess. You've also got the Chicago Public Schools, which has a lot of money going to it. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson yesterday, he laid out his plan. He talked about investing in communities, investing in housing, investing in education, investing millions more for youth summer employment opportunities, trying to fill out his campaign promise of hiring more detectives for Chicago police, and a host of other things. But a campaign promise that he made apparently was not raising property taxes. Well, yesterday, after laying out that he has worked to find efficiencies and savings, he had no other choice but to ask for a property tax increase.
That is why this budget currently includes a property tax increase of $300 million to fund and keep our commitment to fund not just our pension contributions, but to fund the future of our city. This is tough. It is. It is something that I grappled with for weeks and weeks. We didn't make this decision lightly. I directed my budget team to look at all the options at closing this budget gap. And when it came down to either mass layoffs, curbing vital city services, or an increase in property taxes, I would certainly much rather tax the rich. But I did have to make the choice to increase our property taxes. And I understand that today I'm asking families to lean in yet again and do a little bit more in order to make sure that their neighbors are not laid off and to make sure that we don't have to cut vital city services. I know that across the city, working families make tough decisions every day. God knows that I do. And whether it's the cost of childcare, paying utilities, certainly I know the challenge of paying utilities. And even going grocery shopping and buying food for our families, I know adding to those tough choices is not easy. But this was the best option that I have at this time.
Didn't he, during the campaign, wasn't there a whole thing about how he had some late bills to the city, like utility bills or something to that effect? Interesting. So yeah, he's increasing property taxes in his proposed budget that starts January 1st. Chicago spends about $18 billion plus a year. At least that's what they're going to spend in the current fiscal year, and the next fiscal year begins January 1st. So he laid out all these priorities. He talked about how he's finding more revenue in different places, and he's pushing a back against any kind of mass layoffs. Well, Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at an unrelated event was asked about this proposed property tax increase.
We're doing a lot better than we've ever done before, putting more resources into schools. And what does that do? It allows local governments to at least abate the pressure to increase property taxes. Many have not taken us up on that, which is just disturbing to me. I know that there's a need for more funding, that people feel like, there isn't ever enough, but property taxes are already too high. And so the more that attention can be given, and that is by local school boards, including the one in Chicago, but local school board when it is fully convened and elected. But across the state of Illinois, it's local school boards that impose property taxes related to schools. And honestly, they've received more money than ever before from us. I think that they should take that seriously and try to abate the increases in property taxes.
So he has, in budgets, increased the amount of dollars going to school districts in particular, which drives your property tax bill. You look at your property tax bill, and there it is. I mean, the school district in your area, it takes a lot of your dollars. But the governor says, hey, we've been increasing money to local school districts, and more than $2 billion over the past few years have been given to local schools, increase of $2+ billion. But you really haven't seen a decrease in the property taxes. And the governor's just highlighting that. There's really been no abatement, and he's disturbed that local governments haven't been taking him up on that. But that's how it is here in the state of Illinois. Property taxes driven primarily by local school districts. Those local school districts are the ones that are making the decision to increase property taxes for schools, for buildings, for salaries, and so on. But the governor was asked again about the idea of increasing property taxes in the city of Chicago.
Well, the city's in a little bit different position, but property taxes are too high for everybody. I mean, if you're asking me that question, I think that's an easy one for everybody. And I understand, though, that there is stress in the city budget. They've got to figure out. I have talked about the need for efficiencies, the need to make sure that you're not, haven't put your ARPA dollars entirely into your operating budget. And I don't know what the percentage is for the city rather, but it's a reasonably high percentage. And so that obviously causes problems. We tried not to do that at the state level. We also have, tight budgets, and, we'll continue to. But I would like to see some recognition that property taxes already are a burden.
So obviously, Mayor Johnson, in announcing a new property tax increase proposal, recognized people are having a hard time paying their bills, but he also said he's doing more to try to draw up more revenue, not just through this property tax increase, but also by enforcement and making sure that corporations, he says, pay their bills.
In total, this budget includes over $400 million in additional revenue, including enhancements to our existing revenue streams. And through the leadership of the city's corporation council, we are cracking down on these bad actors and corporations that owe the city money.
It wasn't the only time he talked about corporations. One of the reasons he said in his speech that he's pushing for a property tax increase is because a couple of other avenues to increase taxes have failed. You had the progressive income tax that was on the statewide ballot in 2020. That failed. Voters did not approve that measure. That would have changed Illinois' flat income tax to a progressive income tax. Mayor Johnson said it was the ultra-rich and corporations that put out a campaign against that, and that's why it failed. He also complained about the Bring Chicago Home tax increase that was on the ballot recently in Chicago. That failed. Voters did not approve that. What that would have done, it was it increased a progressive tax on the sale of real estate and would have gone to help fund homelessness. Again, voters rejected that tax increase. So he says the only reason he is increasing property taxes in his proposed budget is because he had nowhere else to go. He was asked after the city council hearing yesterday about his campaign promise to not raise property taxes.
What would you say to those who voted for you and now you are going to be raising those property taxes when I know initially you said that you would not during your campaign?
Well, look, as I've always said, I hold true to my values, and negotiating the details of my values is something I've always been open to. But first and foremost, I want people to be very clear that what this budget does, what I've done since I've been in office, it invests in young people. It invests in mental health and behavioral health. It invests in community safety. It invests in building more affordable homes. These investments are clear. We're not going backwards to a time in which neighborhoods that have been, disinvested in and ignored over decades, we're not going back to that time. And look, as painful as this process has been, I know that the people of Chicago don't want us to lose the vital services that we rely upon. And with the options that were in front of me, and this is, the reality of the options that are in front of me. We can cut and lay off our neighbors. We can find, revenue streams. But we have to make sure that we're paying our obligations as well. And, this is the beginning of an open process that I'm looking forward to engaging with all of our city council members and the community at large.
So again, looks like at least when it comes to what Johnson's looking for, he's looking to increase property taxes. The budget starts January 1st. Expect budget hearings sometime in November, but there were a couple of alder people yesterday who said, we don't have the budget books yet. And since we delayed this speech 2 weeks, can we delay the budget hearings? So we'll see what happens with the city of Chicago. Again, they spend $18 billion just in the city, looking for a $300 million property tax increase with $1 billion deficit. we'll see how that goes and if they're going to be able to tolerate it financially. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. Most of your property taxes go to your local school districts. Well, how much is it costing per student in your school district? How are students performing in your school district? Every year, the Illinois State Board of Education releases the Illinois Report Card, and they give highlights that they see happening. But we can also drill down even further and take a look at those numbers. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Let's take a look at Illinois School Report Card, and I encourage you to, if you're watching live, share with me now the school district you want to look up, and I'll do what I can to give that a view. But it's pretty easy. You just search Illinois School Report Card, and you'll find this website with the Illinois State Board of Education. They do it every year. Some of the highlights that they put out on this was, and again, you can get the headline at thecentersquare.com. Go to thecentersquare.com, Illinois, and you'll find the latest headline here about the school report card being released. And the headline that they gave is Illinois graduates gain. They are doing better in English. They're doing not as well in math, and they're truant less. So Kevin Bessler analyzing those numbers, and you can get that headline at thecentersquare.com. But let's look at the Illinois report card itself and pull up some of the interesting things that are found in here. So you can take a look at a state snapshot right here. All right, you see that right there, state snapshot. As I try to point virtually here. So the state snapshot, it'll give you an overview of how things look statewide, some of the different types of areas here, academic progress, equity journey continuum, state environment, students, accountability, teachers, administration, retired tests. There are 866 school districts in Illinois. 866 school districts. We always hear about Illinois having the largest number of local taxing bodies. This is one reason adding to the 7,000 plus taxing bodies in the state of Illinois. 866 school districts, 3,800 schools with a graduation rate of 88%. And looks like, various other things that are found on that. But then you can also just go to specific school districts. I'm just going to pull up Chicago. Which is always fascinating to take a look at. Because before we do go to Chicago, let's take a look at the state. All right, so the state snapshot. I think under students, let's go to state environment, district finances. All right, so district finances, on average, across the state of Illinois, it's costing the state in instructional spending $11,078. Per student. Now, when you include, I believe, instructional spending and other spending, you got to keep the lights on, right? The total is $18,905, so almost $19,000 of per taxpayer, or rather $18,000 per student is what it costs the taxpayer. So that's the average statewide. All right, statewide. Well, let's take a look at Chicago. So we'll go back to Illinois here. And zoom in on this map, and we'll scroll up to Chicago just to see what the largest school district is costing taxpayers. So Chicago School District 299, pull that up, view report, And we'll look at some of the things here as well. District environment, school finances, the expenditures, how much it's costing, the district average, about $16,300 per student. All right. So a little bit, and that might be not the operational. All right. This is spending per student. So that number is not as clear as you may want it to be, but obviously, you look at some of the other schools that are costing per student. Camelot Safe Academy School, $130,000 per student. This is in the Chicago School District. All right, so that's a lot of money. But how are they doing? How are outcomes? Academic progress in Chicago Public Schools. 16%. Progress in science, English language arts, 20%. Some of the math scores you can see here. Science assessments, 37% proficiency. 8th grade passing algebra, less than 30%, but they're graduating 81%. So this again is Chicago. Going back to the home, let's take a look at the state snapshot again, where we'll take a look at academic progress. Statewide, you can see some of these numbers, 53% science assessment, while 29% graduate algebra in 8th grade, 88% on track in 9th grade with an 88% graduation rate. Some people, question, how come there's these high graduation rates when they're not able to, show proficiencies in certain areas? Okay, let's go check out the chat here and see what you guys are wanting to look up. So be sure to send into the chat room live on YouTube each and every weekday morning with America's Talking Network. Let's hear from you. What district you guys want me to look up? I saw some earlier on in the chat, but put those back in there so that we can take a closer look. So Manteno School District 5. Let's take a look at Manteno School District 5. Pull this up, go home. And hopefully this is also, you guys can look this up yourselves. Just go to Illinois School Report Card. We'll go to Manteno School District 5. All right, so pulling this up. Academic progress. You've got 60% science assessment, 16% passing algebra in 8th grade. Looks like 92% graduation rate, and 95% of 9th graders are on track, according to Illinois School Report Card. What's it costing per student? We'll go check out the district environment, school finances. I think right there on the splash page, though, it talked about $13,000. So you're looking at about $14,000 spending per student. All right, $14,000 per student. Some of the other things, let's see, Champaign Unit 4, somebody's asking for, so we'll go home. Champaign Unit 4, CUSD 4, search. All right, academic progress. Let's just look at the district snapshot, I guess. 18 schools, 82% graduation rate, $17,000 per student, with 35% chronic absenteeism. That's more than a third of the students are chronically absent. Yikes. So that's Champaign Community School District 4. Let's go check out some of the others here. If you guys could put the name of the area, that'll probably help out. But we'll try District 205. Might be, how about if we just do 205? Yeah, see, this is where I'm running into. Okay, so you can see there Elmhurst, Galesburg, Lockport, Rockford. So you got to put the actual name. Peatone 207. Let's see if we can find that one. All right, there it is. CUSD 207. So overview here. 92% graduation rate, $18,000 per student, costing the taxpayers. 21% chronic absenteeism. I don't want to spend too much time on all of this, but I think, hopefully it's instructive to show you can go to Illinois School Report Card and pull up your district's finances and see how they're doing. It's all about accountability, right? What are the education proficiencies? How are students doing? What's it costing per taxpayer, especially as you look at your property tax bill and how that's impacting you? So go check that out, spend some time with it, look up areas that in other areas, maybe tell your friends about it. But a good way to stay informed, especially as a taxpayer. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, I think that's all I got for you today. I was going to talk about another controversial issue out of Chicago with the appointee of a member of the school board making some anti-Semitic comments, and Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked about it, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson being asked about it multiple times. It's a pretty fascinating story, but I think we'll save it for tomorrow. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Happy Halloween, by the way. Didn't even think of that. All Hallows Eve. Hopefully you enjoy your Halloween. Sorry I didn't dress up. We'll be back at it tomorrow. All right, November is amongst us. Can't believe it. All right, have a great day, guys. Happy Thursday.